The Second Bag by Rudyard Kipling. The City of Dreadful Night. All this time not a word about Black Sheep. He came later and Harry, the black-haired boy, was mainly responsible for his coming. Juddyhu 156 could help loving little Juddapast by special permit into the kitchen, and then straight to Auntie Rosa's heart. Harry was Auntie Rosa's one child, and Punch was the extra boy about the house. There was no special place for him or his little affairs, and he was forbidden to sprawl on sofas and explain his ideas about the manufacture of this world, and his hopes for his future sprawling was lazy and wore out sofas, and little boys were not expected to talk. They were talked to, and the talking to was intended for the benefit of their morals, as the unquestioned despot of the house at Bombay Punch could not quite understand how he came to be of no account in this new life. Harry might reach across the table and take what he wanted. Judy might point and get what she wanted. Punch was forbidden to do either. The gray man was his great hope and standby for many months after Mama and Papa left, and he had forgotten to tell Judy to remember Mama. This lapse was excusable because in the interval he had been introduced by Auntie Rosa to two very impressive things in abstraction, called God, the intimate friend and ally of Auntie Rosa, generally believed to live behind the kitchen range, because it was hot there, and a dirty brown book filled with unintelligible dots and marks. Punch was always anxious to oblige everybody. He, their 157-4, welded the story of the creation on to what he could recollect of his Indian fairy tales, and scandalized Auntie Rosa by repeating the result to Judy. It was a sin, a grievous sin, and Punch was talked to for a quarter of an hour. He could not understand where the iniquity came in, but was careful not to repeat the offense, because Auntie Rosa told him that God had heard every word he had said, and was very angry if this were true. Why didn't God come and say so, thought Punch, and dismissed the matter from his mind. Afterward, he learned to know the Lord as the only thing in the world more awful than Auntie Rosa's, a creature that stood in the background and counted the strokes of the cane. But the reading was just then a much more serious matter than any creed. Auntie Rosa sat him upon a table and told him that a B meant ob. Why, said Punch, A is A and B is B. Why does a B mean ob? Because I tell you it does, said Auntie Rosa, and you've got to say it. Punch said it accordingly, and for a month, hugely against his will, stumbled through the brown book, not in the least comprehending what it meant. But Uncle Harry, who walked much and generally alone, was wont to come into the nursery and suggest to Auntie Rosa that Punch should walk with him. He seldom spoke, but he showed 158 Punch all Rocklington, from the mudbanks and the sand of the Back Bay to the great harbors where ships lay at anchor, and the dockyards where the hammers were never still, and the marine store shops and the shiny brass counters in the offices where Uncle Harry went once every 3 months with a slip of blue paper and received sovereigns in exchange, for he held a wound pension. Punch heard too from his lips the story of the Battle of Navarino, where the sailors of the fleet for 3 days afterward were deaf as posts and could only sign to each other. That was because of the noise of the guns, said Uncle Harry, and I have got the wadding of a bullet somewhere inside me now. Punch regarded him with curiosity. He had not the least idea what wadding was, and his notion of a bullet was a dockyard cannonball, bigger than his own head. How could Uncle Harry keep a cannonball inside him? He was ashamed to ask for fear Uncle Harry might be angry. Punch had never known what angerial anger meant until one terrible day when Harry had taken his paint box to paint a boat with, and Punch had protested with a loud and lamentable voice. Then Uncle Harry had appeared on the scene, and muttering something about strangers' children, had with a stick smitten the black-haired boy across the shoulders till he wept and yelled, and 159 Auntie Rosa came in and abused Uncle Harry for cruelty to his own flesh and blood, and Punch shuddered to the tips of his shoes. It was "Auntie, my fault," he explained to the boy, but both Harry and Auntie Rosa said that it was, and that Punch had told tales, and for a week there were no more walks with Uncle Harry. But that week brought a great joy to Punch. He had repeated till he was thrice weary the statement that the cat lay on the mat, and the rat came in. Now I can truly read, said Punch, and now I will never read anything in the world. He put the brown book in the cupboard where his school books lived, and accidentally tumbled out a venerable volume, without covers, labeled Sharp's Magazine. There was the most portentous picture of a griffin on the first page, with verses below. The griffin carried off 1 sheep a day from a German village, till a man came with a falchion, and split the griffin open. Goodness only knew what a falchion was, but there was the griffin, and his history was an improvement upon the eternal cat. This, said Punch, means things, and now I will know all about everything in all the world he read, till the light failed not understanding a tithe of the meaning, but tantalized by glimpses of new worlds hereafter, to be revealed 160. What is a falchion, what is a ewe lamb, what is a base usurper, what is a verdant mead? He demanded with flushed cheeks at bedtime of the astonished Aunt Rosa. Say your prayers and go to sleep, she replied, and that was all the help Punch then or afterward found at her hands in the new and delightful exercise of reading. Aunt Rosa only knows about God and things like that, argued Punch. Uncle Harry will tell me. The next walk proved that Uncle Harry could not help either, but he allowed Punch to talk, and even sat down on a bench to hear about the griffin. Other walks brought other stories, as Punch ranged farther afield, for the house held large store of old books that no one ever opened, from Frank Fairleg in serial numbers, and the earlier poems of Tennyson, contributed anonymously to Sharp's magazine, to 62 exhibition catalogues, gay with colors, and delightfully incomprehensible and odd leaves of Gulliver's Travels. As soon as Punch could string a few pothooks together, he wrote to Bombay, demanding by return of post all the books in all the world. Papa could not comply with this modest indent, but sent Grimm's fairy tales and a Hans Andersen. That was enough if he were only left alone. Punch could pass at any hour. He chose into a land of his 161 own beyond reach of Auntie Rosa and her god Harry, and his teasements and Judy's claims to be played with. Don't disturb me, I am reading. Go and play in the kitchen, grunted Punch. Auntie Rosa lets you go there. Judy was cutting her second teeth, and was fretful. She appealed to Auntie Rosa, who descended on Punch. I was reading, he explained, reading a book I want to read. You're only doing that to show off, said Auntie Rosa, but well, see. Play with Judy now, and don't open a book for a week. Judy did not pass a very enjoyable playtime with Punch, who was consumed with indignation. There was a pettiness at the bottom of the prohibition which puzzled him. It's what I like to do, he said, and she's found out that, and stopped me. Don't cry, Jewett, was in tea your fault, please don't cry, or shall say I made you. Ju loyally mopped up her tears, and the two played in their nursery, a room in the basement and half underground, to which they were regularly sent after the midday dinner. While Auntie Rosa slept, she drank wine, that is to say, something from a bottle in the cellarette for her stomach's sake. But if she did not fall asleep, she would sometimes come into the nursery to see that the children 162 were really playing. Now bricks, wooden hoops, ninepins, and chinaware cannot amuse forever, especially when all fairyland is to be won by the mere opening of a book. And as often as not, Punch would be discovered reading to Judy, or tell her interminable tales that was an offense in the eyes of the law, and Judy would be whisked off by Auntie Rosa, while Punch was left to play alone, and be sure that I hear you doing it. It was not a cheering employ, for he had to make a playful noise. At last, with infinite craft, he devised an arrangement whereby the table could be supported as to 3 legs on toy bricks, leaving the fourth clear to bring down on the floor. He could work the table with one hand and hold a book with the other. This he did till an evil day, when Auntie Rosa pounced upon him unawares and told him that he was acting a lie. If you're old enough to do that, she said, her temper was always worst after dinner. You're old enough to be beaten. But im not a animal, said Punch aghast. He remembered Uncle Harry and the stick, and turned white. Auntie Rosa had hidden a light cane behind her, and Punch was beaten then and there over the shoulders. It was a revelation to him. The room door was shut, and he was left to weep himself into repentance and work out his own gospel of life. 163. Auntie Rosa, he argued, had the power to beat him with many stripes. It was unjust and cruel, and Mama and Papa would never have allowed it. Unless perhaps, as Auntie Rosa seemed to imply, they had sent secret orders, in which case he was abandoned. Indeed, it would be discreet in the future to propitiate Auntie Rosa. But then again, even in matters in which he was innocent, he had been accused of wishing to show off. He had shown off before visitors when he had attacked a strange gentleman, Harry's uncle, not his own, with requests for information about the griffin and the falchion and the precise nature of the tilbury, in which Frank Fairleg wrote all points of paramount interest, which he was bursting to understand clearly. It would not do to pretend to care for Auntie Rosa. At this point Harry entered, and stood afar off, eyeing Punch, a disheveled heap, in the corner of the room, with disgust. "You're a liara young liar," said Harry with great unction, "and you're to have tea down here, because you're not fit to speak to us. And you're not to speak to Judy again, till mother gives you leave. Y'all corrupt her, you're only fit to associate with the servant. Mother says so." Having reduced Punch to a second agony of tears, Harry departed upstairs with the news that Punch was still rebellious. 164. Uncle Harry sat uneasily in the dining room. It all Rosa. Said he at last, can't you leave the child alone? He's a good enough little chap when I meet him. He puts on his best manners with you, Henry, said Auntie Rosa, but I am very much afraid that he is the black sheep of the family. Harry heard and stored up the name for future use, Judy cried, till she was bidden to stop her brother not being worth tears, and the evening concluded with the return of Punch to the upper regions, and a private sitting, at which all the blinding horrors of hell were revealed to Punch, with such store of imagery, as Auntie Rosa's narrow mind possessed. Most grievous of all was Judy's rounded reproach, and Punch went to bed in the depths of the valley of humiliation. He shared his room with Harry, and knew the torture in store for an hour and a half. He had to answer that young gentleman's question as to his motives for telling a lie and a grievous lie, the precise quantity of punishment inflicted by Auntie Rosa, and had also to profess his deep gratitude for such religious instruction as Harry thought fit to impart. From that day began the downfall of Punch, now black sheep. Untrustworthy in one thing, untrustworthy in all, said Auntie Rosa, and Harry felt that black 165 sheep was delivered into his hands. He would wake him up in the night to ask him why he was such a liar. I don't know, Punch would reply. Then, don't you think you ought to get up and pray to God for a new heart? And yes. Get out and pray then, and Punch would get out of bed with raging hate in his heart against all the world seen and unseen. He was always tumbling into trouble. Harry had a knack of cross-examining him as to his day's doings, which seldom failed to lead him sleepy and savage into half a dozen contradictions, all duly reported to Auntie Rosa next morning. But it was a lie. Punch would begin charging into a labored explanation that landed him more hopelessly in the mire. I said that I did say my prayers twice over in the day, and that was on Tuesday. Once I did, I know I did, but Harry said I did and so forth, till the tension brought tears, and he was dismissed from the table in disgrace. You use to be as bad as this, said Judy Ostrakin, at the catalogue of black sheep's crimes. Why are you so bad now? I don't know, black sheep would reply. I am. Not if I only was bothered upside down. I knew what I did, and I want to say so, but Harry 166 always makes it out different somehow. And Auntie Rosa, does believe a word I say? Oh, Ju, don't you say I'm bad too. Auntie Rosa says you are, said Judy. She told the vicar so when he came yesterday. Why does she tell all the people outside the house about me? It is fair, said Black Sheep, when I was in Bombay, and was badoing bad, not made up bad like this. Mama told Papa, and Papa told me he knew, and that was all outside people. Didn't he know too? Even Mita, didn't he know? I don't remember, said Judy wistfully. I was all little then. Mama was just as fond of you as she was of me, was she. Course she was, so was Papa, so was everybody. Auntie Rosa likes me more than she does you. She says that you are a trial and a black sheep, and I am not to speak to you more than I can help. Always not outside of the times, when you must speak to me at all. Judy nodded her head mournfully. Black Sheep turned away in despair, but Judy's arms were round his neck. Never mind, Punch, she whispered, I will speak to you just the same as ever, and ever. You're my own brother, though you eretho. Auntie Rosa says you're bad. And Harry 167 says you're a little coward. He says that if I pulled your hair hard you'd cry. Pull then, said Punch. Judy pulled gingerly. Pull harder, as hard as you can there. I don't mind how much you pull it now. If y'all speak to me same as ever, ill, let you pull it as much as you like, pull it out if you like. But I know if Harry came and stood by and made you do it, it'd cry. So the two children sealed the compact with a kiss, and Black Sheep's heart was cheered within him, and by extreme caution and careful avoidance of Harry, he acquired virtue, and was allowed to read undisturbed for a week. Uncle Harry took him for walks, and consoled him with rough tenderness, never calling him Black Sheep. It's good for you, I suppose, Punch, he used to say. Let us sit down, I'm getting tired. His steps led him now not to the beach, but to the cemetery of Rocklington, amid the potato fields. For hours, the gray man would sit on a tombstone, while Black Sheep read epitaphs, and then with a sigh would stump home again. I shall lie there soon, said he to Black Sheep one winter evening, when his face showed white as a worn silver coin under the lights of the chapelage. You need tell Auntie Rosa. A month later he turned sharp round ere half a 168 morning walk was completed, and stumped back to the house. Put me to bed, Rosa. He muttered, "I've walked my last, the wadding has found me out." They put him to bed, and for a fortnight the shadow of his sickness lay upon the house, and Black Sheep went to and fro unobserved. Papa had sent him some new books, and he was told to keep quiet. He retired into his own world, and was perfectly happy. Even at night his felicity was unbroken. He could lie in bed and string himself tales of travel and adventure, while Harry was downstairs. "Uncle Harry's going to die," said Judy, who now lived almost entirely with Auntie Rosa. "I am very sorry," said Black Sheep soberly. "He told me that a long time ago." Auntie Rosa heard the conversation. "Will nothing check your wicked tongue?" she said angrily. There were blue circles round her eyes. Black Sheep retreated to the nursery, and read "Cometh Up as a Flower." With deep and uncomprehending interest, he had been forbidden to read it on account of its sinfulness. But the bonds of the universe were crumbling, and Auntie Rosa was in great grief. "I'm glad," said Black Sheep. "She is unhappy now. It was a lie, though I knew he told me not to tell 169. That night Black Sheep woke with a start. Harry was not in the room, and there was a sound of sobbing on the next floor. Then the voice of Uncle Harry singing the song of the Battle of Navarino cut through the darkness. "He is getting well," thought Black Sheep, who knew the song through all its 17 verses, but the blood froze at his little heart as he thought the voice leapt an octave and rang shrill as a boatswain's pipe. That day at Navarino, Uncle Harry shouted. Black Sheep, half wild with excitement and fear of he knew not what. A door opened, and Auntie Rosa screamed up the staircase, "Hush, for God's sake, hush, you little devil, Uncle Harry is dead."